missed it live. Catch the podcast on kaya959.co.za.
Follow the money
On 959 Breakfast.
hashtag
959 Breakfast.
So this morning, Sol and I are very much interested in the concept of a 4-day work week. This idea that is being introduced, looking at the much hyped 4-day week idea that many other parts of the world is so crazy about. It is coming to South Africa. We're trialing it in February. And the question is, will this work for us? Do you think you can do a 4-day week? Yes or no? And why do you say that? So when my partner had sent me a link of this article, I think about a week ago, I looked at it and the first thing that I asked him was, so babe, how's this going to work? Is it a blanket across all industries? Is it not blanket across all industries? Because I don't think all industries can afford, in terms of the way the nature of the industry is and the services that are delivered, can afford a 4-day work week. So I hope it's not blanket. For me, that's my only question mark. And the conversation was distracted by other things and it was not yet revisited. So picking your brain now.
So what's the idea? Does it increase productivity? What's the idea behind this 4-day thing?
So there's many questions that I have, because the other question that I had posed was then how does this affect remuneration? Right? So are you remunerated less? Do you keep the same salary package now that you're working less days? Is it a cut in your salary? Do you get a salary increment maybe? Or, I'm not too sure.
Because if the salary remains the same, it means your hours should remain the same. Meaning, let's say we're cutting off Fridays, cutting from Monday to Thursday. Then you're going to need to fit in the Friday hours in those 4 days. Then when do you get time to properly rest? And do you really then become more productive when you get less rest?
Because I'm looking at the medical industry, right? The medical industry cannot afford a 4-day work week. I'm not too sure how we're already struggling in the hospitals, and we're already struggling in clinics and so forth with having ample hands to help, especially like now with COVID making headlines again and resurfacing with the stronger strain and a more easily transferable strain. What happens if the situation becomes a nightmare with things like this being put into place? We look at the safety and so forth industry, the mining industries. We look at our radio industry, entertainment industries. Which industries would best thrive in the 4-day work week? And which industries would be negatively affected by a 4-day work week? What is it that we are missing in terms of understanding? Now, mind you, we read and we are certainly knowledgeable on certain things, but we don't maybe comprehend it fully. So if you have a better understanding, maybe you could drop us a voice note on 0636880959 just to break down to us what your understanding is of the 4-day work week and the trial coming up and how we can best understand it.
I think it would work if, obviously, let's say within a company or within certain industries, not the entire workforce stops working on Thursday.
It can't be a blanket thing.
Yeah, so others will work from Thursday to the 4th day, and then others, so that there's a continuation of the work, i.e., law enforcement, for example, or like you said, in a call center, say your network provider, you're stuck, you need to call them. Of course, you can't not get a hold of assistance for 4 days.
So maybe there'll be like a rotation of employees within the roster. I'm not too sure. Look, I find it very, very interesting. I'm for it. I'm pro it. But I just want to understand the nitty-gritty of how it will work. Is it 4 days in the office and 1 day at home?
I'm conflicted because as a DJ, I could do with 4 days of gigging. However, as an adult, because you always leak money on weekends, I don't see myself, having a 3-day weekend. And then the day before the weekend actually begins, the 4th day of work is treated like a Friday. So that's technically even 4 days of me just sitting home entertaining my kids. Where's that money going to come from?
I'm very interested in the high level HR conversations, the conversations that affect contracts, and ultimately contracts are about remuneration and your relationship with the institute that employs you. So how are we affected in that regard? Share with us your thoughts and what you might know that we might be missing. 0636880959. Let's follow the 4-day work week money.
Follow the money.
Follow the money
on 959 Breakfast.
Hashtag
959 Breakfast.
We are following the money, and we've managed to be joined by Michelle Austin, who's financial director at Kigor Group SA. So in Following the Money this morning, we're talking about the 4-day week idea. It's gaining popularity worldwide, and we're going to see it being piloted in our home country, SA, South Africa, this February. This is next month, actually, and we're only 10 days into the first month of the year. So we're not too far off. Michelle, good morning. How are you? Hello, Michelle.
Yes, thank you. How are you? Yes,
fantastic. Fantastic. Cannot complain, Kani Klani. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us this morning. So, Michelle, on the surface, of course, I mean, you know, we're exhausted as a people. We've been through so much in the past 2 years, make it 3 actually. And this idea sounds great on paper because on the surface it looks like, we're working less days. So we do get to rest a little bit more, exciting times. But when we have to unpack it now and look at the practicality of it, is this going to work according to results in countries that have already tried it? Is it practical? What limitations does the 4-day week model have on certain sectors? That's if any at all.
Yeah. So I think that overall the limitations of a 4-day work week are going to depend on the specific circumstances of each sector and on each specific organization. And no matter what organization or no matter what sector, it's going to require some careful planning and considerations for it to be implemented successfully.
Absolutely.
Some sectors that require consistent coverage and customer service that may face challenges implementing the model. Examples are, you already mentioned a little bit earlier, sectors like retail, hospitality, emergency services, the police force, public transport, and even healthcare. Those sectors can't just take 3 days off per week and not have any coverage. But it is possible for individual workers to have 4-day work weeks. So you also mentioned like some sort of rotation or roster. But there could be significant challenges that come with that. So what's going to be needed is additional qualified staff to cover those other shifts. And that might not always be easy to find those people. Also something to consider is the cost that's involved in having more team members to cover the same number of hours could be prohibitive. And then also ensuring each area of the business is covered during the workday, it can require more effort, more scheduling, more forethought, and more planning. There's other sectors like you did mention some of them, so manufacturing, mining, or construction. You can't just stop operations for an additional day each week. It could lead to additional costs for staffing and staffing operations, and it could actually eventually lead to a lower productivity. Something else to consider is that workers might be required to work overtime to meet deadlines or projects, and that could also be more costly for the organization.
This is what
Something else to consider in those industries is the occupational health and safety. In those type of environments, longer hours could mean that employees are tired, and tired employees tend to increase the risk of injuries.
Absolutely.
So, it really depends on the industry. Then, for instance, another industry to consider is like the logistics industry. For instance, there is a physical limit on how many items a Takealot warehouse employee can pick every hour, or how many delivery locations a courier guide driver can manage daily.
100%.
There is no one-size-fits-all solution to the 4-week working model, and every sector needs to consider its specific needs and the constraints of that sector.
Of course.
So now, Michelle, when this model is piloted in SA next month, which particular sectors will be trying it out? As you just said, not all sectors can practically try it out.
Yeah.
So I think the sectors that it's going to be more successful in are more predictable or independent work scenarios. So, for example, office work, professional services, research, basically any sectors where they can adjust their workflows or their schedules easily to accommodate the shorter work week without sacrificing productivity.
So, and are people now going to earn less? Or because some people, they invoice or they get paid per hour. What happens then to the extra day that they won't be working? What happens to those hours?
So that is something that I'm concerned about the 4-day work week model, is that if it gains traction, one of the most significant disadvantages could be that it might widen existing inequalities.
Yeah. So, Michelle, you are very practical in terms of your thought processes around this. Quickly to wrap it up, because we have fast run out of time, top of the hour, 8 o'clock, I've got to take my news. No worries at all, no fault of yours. All things considered, is this a great idea, and do you see it working out well in South Africa, yes or no? Because we have a huge weekend culture, and with a 4-day work week, soon we will complain that the 3-day weekend is way too short.
I know you're not going to like my answer, but I think it depends.
Okay.
I really do think it depends. I think each organization and each industry needs to look at the pros and cons. And I think that also there needs to be an enormous amount of communication between the employees and the employer.
Absolutely.
In order for it to be a success.
Absolutely. I have a feeling that the HR departments across all sectors are going to be kept very busy from the month of February. Michelle, thank you so
Indeed.
much. Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time this morning. That is Michelle Austin. You're most welcome. Financial Director at Kiga Group SA, joining us for Follow the Money.
Leave a comment. WhatsApp 063-688-0959.
I think you guys are looking at it from an angle whereby you're not considering the fact that if we have 4-day work weeks, it means the working cycle for most companies will be 4 days. Most Korean companies, certain industries deliver up to Saturday. Then you have restaurants which are open almost the entire week. So it will benefit that industry as well, which employs a lot of people. It might have good effects in certain places and it might have bad effects in certain places. But what I think is there's industry that it can be done in an isolated manner where that industry alone can do a 4-day work week. But then if we're going to blanket approach it, it means all the other industries also have to opt up to it so that we can have a similar business cycle.
We're already having that, system in our organization. We started it from late last year. What it actually entails is that human beings can spend from 2 to 4 days in the office. So what we do, individuals can choose between Monday and Friday which 2 to 4 days they spend in the office. Not that the working week will be reduced to 4 days. No, we cannot do that. But we just reduce the number of office presence for staff so they can only have 2 to 4 days in the office and the rest they can work from home.
I think because in my industry, when you guys have flexi hours, every company has their own hours. So how many hours do people have to work? In my industry, when you work your flexi hours and work extra hours, that's how it makes you to work for either 4 or 3 days in a week, because they calculate all the hours that you've worked over, including your normal hours. It makes you work less days in a week.
This is already in place. I think it's just being hyped up to create an impression that we are doing something new. If you work 4 days a week, Sol starts on a Tuesday, ends on a Friday. Dinero starts on a Monday, and on a Thursday. So overall, you are covered for all those hours. And yes, if you work shifts, people will work 3 shifts, 2 shifts, or it could be one straight shift where you work instead of 8 hours, you could work 9.5, or you can work 10 hours a day, which is not really that complex. I think it's doable, but in terms of productivity, we are struggling as a country, and I think it just boils down to work ethic than the number of hours that we work.
100%. Thank you very much for those of you who are actually experiencing it, for putting it into perspective for the rest of us.
Follow the money.
Follow the money
On 959 Breakfast.
Hashtag
959 Breakfast. If you missed it live, catch the podcast on kaya959.co.za.